visitors seen the shadows of former patients?
Is the spirit of a young girl roaming the first floor in search of her mother?
Does the basement house a sinister spirit from the building's time as an asylum?
Find out the answers to these questions and more as we uncover the strange hauntings and history from Edinburgh Manor in Scotch Grove, Iowa.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Erica.
And this is The Haunted Atlas, a haunted U.S. podcast.
In the interest of fully exploring history of certain locations, the Haunted Atlas may discuss sensitive or disturbing topics. Listener discretion is advised.
Surrounded by vast stretches of farmland, perched on a hill, Edinburgh Manor sits as a testament to the times of almshouses and communal living. This massive, stoic brick structure holds more than just decades of history. Visitors and investigators alike think it to be haunted. Our history begins with the history of Scotch Grove, Iowa in the 1830s. There was not much there at this time, and in general, there was very few formal settlements in the Iowa area.
Which makes sense. I feel like you don't hear about Iowa very often when we're talking about the country's history, which is kind of crazy. Like, I really enjoy learning about the history of these smaller places, you know?
I feel like you just offended everybody that lives in Iowa.
That's possible. I apologize. Apologies.
But I know what you mean. I think it's so, of course, early American history is so focused on the East Coast.
Yes.
And then I feel like you loop in the gold rush of California and stuff like that, but you don't really talk about the Midwest as much in early America. In 1850, the Jones County Poor Farm was built here to help with the sick, poor, and elderly. However, if the residents were healthy enough to work, they were required to do so.
Okay.
So they had to run the farm.
So that's what I was going to ask. Is that the difference between a poor farm and a poor house? Is like a poor farm is people running the farm?
I think it's a square and rectangle thing where
Gotcha.
The poor farm is considered a poor house, but you only need to work the farm if it has the farming aspect.
Gotcha.
Because places that would be cities like Chicago, for example, if they had a poor house there, they wouldn't have a farm to work.
Right. Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
So I talk about the people that lived there using the term residents. They were actually called inmates historically.
Oh.
But I just don't like that term.
No, I like residents better. I think that does make sense. I mean, yeah, inmates does have sort of a negative connotation.
It does, but that's actually historically how all almshouses talk about the people that lived there. They always say inmates. The area is surrounded by farmland, so again, most of the work did revolve around that at the almshouse. And the Jones County Poor Farm operated for 60 years until it closed in 1910. During the time that it was open, it's estimated that 150 people died there.
Oh my gosh, I thought you were going to say passed through. So that's a lot.
Yes.
Of individuals dying there.
Well, it was open for 60 years.
Right.
That's still...
At first, when you said 150, I thought to myself, that is not a lot of people to have passed through there. And then you said died there. And that's when my brain was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. But that's a lot of people, even for 60 years.
I mean, it's only 3 a year, considering that the people that lived there were like sick, poor, and elderly.
Yeah. Okay.
It could just be old age.
Yeah.
After the closure of the poor farm, the structure was demolished and replaced with the new Edinburgh Manor. It was built out of brick and has over 12,000 square feet. However, the 1930s saw the creation of Social Security, which made poor farms in general less necessary.
So was Edinburgh Manor then still considered like a poor house or a poor farm?
Yes, it was still meant to be a social assistance, communal living area. But with this Social Security, people didn't need to go to these almshouses as much because they were receiving government assistance.
Right.
To fight the decrease in population and keep its doors open, the manor transitioned to an insane asylum. I go back and forth on whether or not this is a huge jump, because they were already treating people that potentially had mental challenges.
Yeah.
But it feels like a big jump.
It does, actually. It does. I think because of the way that we view asylums versus poorhouses in history. But I agree with you. I think if you really look at it logically, that does make sense. Especially then, Social Security does not help with mental illness. So that does make sense if they were trying to keep their doors open, that is the group of people at that time who were just not receiving care.
That is a good point. I think of modern day psychiatric hospitals and everything required for them and think, wow, to jump from a poorhouse to an insane asylum, you must need so much. But in the 1930s, I'm sure that's not the case at all. As medical advancements kept continuing, a lot of things were happening in the early 1930s. It became increasingly difficult for Edinburgh Manor to adapt to the new health landscape. So there is a bit of truth to what I was saying. It's hard to jump from a poorhouse to a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
Eventually, there were overall cuts to mental health funding, and Edinburgh again pivoted. This time, it became a nursing home.
Oh.
Which again is a jump, but not really. It kind of harkens back to the almshouse days.
Yes. Well, and so the way I'm thinking about it is it almost depends on what type of nursing/retirement home it is. Because I think for the most part, when you have just regular nursing homes, most of the individuals there can still take care of themselves. So really, it's more just like a home environment. But if you're talking about individuals who need special care, like memory care, those nursing homes are going to need more medical equipment. So I guess, yeah, I think it depends on how far they pivoted.
Right. But I guess when you think about the fact that there were probably individualized rooms.
Yes.
First when it was a poorhouse and then when it became the insane asylum. So I guess it had a bit of the structure built in, but I hear what you're saying. There are still medical needs.
Yes. Yeah.
However, even the nursing home was short-lived. This place just has bad luck.
Yeah.
There were more and more advancements, and they really just couldn't keep up from the fact that this building was built so long ago.
Right.
Nearby areas opened tons of nursing homes because there was a big increase in need for them, and Edinburgh Manor closed its doors in 2010.
That is way more recent than I would have thought.
Yeah, when you consider the overall history of it, that the Jones County Poor Farm was built in 1850, and some sort of building has operated there since then through 2010. That's a very long history, 160 years.
Yeah.
Any remaining residents were moved to different facilities in the area, which again tended to have better care anyways, and the manor ended up being abandoned for a number of years. It was finally purchased to be preserved as a historical building. But the new owners quickly noticed strange happenings, and they started to wonder if this historic site might have ghostly residents that refused to leave.
Hi, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Matt Hannah.
We're Horror Hour with the Hannahs, a married couple who love digging into the guts of horror movies.
Literally and figuratively.
Whether it's new releases or cult classics, on our podcast we break down the scares, themes, and hidden messages with just the right amount of love and humor, with some occasional bickering.
So grab your popcorn and your emotional support blanket and join us Wednesdays
for a spooky good time with Horror Hour with the Hannahs.
Available wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe today, if you dare.
Many haunted locations have one ghost that is the most prominent, and Edinburgh Manor is no exception. Here, the spirit is named the Joker.
Oh my gosh.
I know, I love it.
Yeah.
No surprise, the ghost is known for being a trickster.
Yes.
He's known for grabbing people, choking them, and causing overall uneasy feelings.
I feel like we might have jumped there just because his name is the Joker and we were talking about him joking around. Choking people seems like not a joke. That would be so scary to me.
Yeah, I think it's his version of funny.
That's fair.
Maybe it's not our version of funny. He's having fun.
Yeah, clearly.
Or they are having fun. I guess we don't know
right.
who it is. And the Joker has actually been captured in photos causing strange abnormalities.
Oh.
The spirit is commonly reported in the basement, specifically in the padded cell room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it starts to make a little more sense.
Yes, yeah.
The padded cell room is actually not padded anymore. It serves as storage, but it did used to be a padded room based on records. The Joker does not like visitors, and people are cautioned to not spend too much time there. In fact, during one investigation in the basement, a cup was actually thrown at one of the investigators.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much more of a sign that a spirit does not want you there than something being thrown in your direction.
Right. And I think if we think of the history of the building, it really does make sense. If this was a padded cell room and this was someone that was there during the asylum time, maybe they didn't want people to mess with them. They could have been scared of staff. Who knows what could have been going on with them mentally. So it makes sense that they don't want people there. On top of the fact that a lot of times spirits just want to be left alone.
Yes. Yeah. And, when we talk about the staff, we also don't know how the individuals who stayed there were treated.
Right.
So it could also be not even just that they were scared of the staff, but that anyone who had entered their cell during their time there was abusive.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm sure that there's a complex that comes from being in this padded cell in the basement.
Yes.
That can't be ideal.
Right. And we talk about changes in environment that can really upset a spirit. So if at some point this was obviously changed to a storage room, that also could have upset the Joker.
Right. And it makes me wonder if the Joker was present while it was a nursing home.
Ah, yeah.
Because that would be a pretty extreme reaction for residents of a nursing home to experience when they went down. Not that they would be in the storage room necessarily, but I think it's really interesting to think of the different pieces throughout time and how the people that inhabited the building would have interacted with the spirits if the haunting started midway through the history.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times it's easy to assume, oh, the haunting started in like 2010
Yes.
when it closed down. But no, it probably started between the nursing home and the asylum. Another notable spirit here is that of a young girl. She's commonly reported on the first floor and is known to want to play.
Oh, well,
and this is a
cute.
sweet spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cute.
People report hearing the laughter of a young girl or even hearing her voice. Paranormal investigators are known to actually bring toys with them to try to engage in play.
Which is really cool. I like hearing stories of that because I think it just shows, it's important when you're going into a space to have respect and thoughtfulness to what was there. And so I really love hearing stories like that where investigators bring in items that they think the spirits will relate to. Because I just think it must get so lonely sometimes for these spirits who are there. And if people are just kind of coming in almost just to see if you're there, but not really giving any thought to who you were or what you might enjoy, that can probably get pretty lonely.
Yeah, I agree. And something that I was thinking too is I wonder how people pick what toys to bring.
Yeah.
Because I think a common toy that investigators bring is a ball, because you can try rolling it, back and forth with the spirit. And there has been some luck with this spirit and playing with a ball. But also, if you know that it's a young girl, might you cater to gender stereotype and buy like a doll?
That's what I was thinking, like see if there's any interaction with like a cat ball on a doll or something.
Yeah. But what if she doesn't like dolls? I think it's interesting. What do you bring when you're trying to engage a spirit?
Yeah.
When all you know is their age, really.
Yeah.
Because she's been engaging with investigators, people have actually named her. There's a few different names that I saw, and they are Sally, Susie, or Sarah.
Oh, well, you know what? If you are hearing this through a spirit box, I could understand how it might come across differently.
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that. I was also wondering if maybe she's too young and she doesn't really know her name or is confused. And so she's responding to the S sound at the beginning of the name. Or maybe it's not a young girl. Maybe it's one of the mentally ill patients.
That's such an insightful thought. I really had not considered that, but that's very possible.
Again, just thinking of all of the different eras of history that we have here. Because when she has communicated with investigators, something she has consistently told them is that she was dropped off at the asylum.
Oh, okay.
So I think it could be that she was one of the patients there.
That makes sense.
There's another distinct ghost here, and it's often seen as a shadow figure. The figure is seen in a small room in the first floor hallway. The story goes that a janitor reportedly hanged himself here using the doorknob and a belt. People who enter the room have uneasy feelings, and some have seen this shadow figure. And I think if you know going into a tour of the building or an investigation of the building that this closet, small room space is meant to be haunted by a negative figure, then the uneasy feelings might not be paranormal.
I agree, because I do think there is a common human emotion when we talk about an individual taking their own life. It's really sad, and I think any kind of human being entering that space is just going to feel that emotion, even if there is no paranormal activity there.
Absolutely. It's just a general sense of heaviness, I think.
Yes.
And not much else is known about this ghost other than it's associated with negative feelings and appears as a shadow figure.
Right.
There are still more ghosts.
Which is honestly really exciting. I love when locations have very specific characters in their stories, you know?
Me too. Me too. Of course, general hauntings are cool, but I love it when it's been so investigated and the spirits are so communicative that you can actually get these distinct profiles.
Yeah.
On the second floor, visitors report seeing a woman standing on the landing, and she often appears in a flowing white dress. Not much is known about her, as she often disappears shortly after she is seen. But mediums have come in, and even though she disappears and actual investigations haven't had much interaction with her using, like you said, like cat balls or spirit box or REM pod, the mediums have been able to consistently say that the woman was left at the asylum by her family.
Oh, no.
There are no records to really discern who this might be.
Yeah.
Record keeping, 1, wasn't great, and 2, if all you know that it's a woman in a white dress, that could be anyone.
Well, that, and is it possible that her family left her there but didn't actually identify who she was? Do you know what I mean? Like maybe the individuals at the asylum also didn't know her name truly or who she was.
That's a really good point, actually. She's specifically seen between noon and 2 p.m., which I think is interesting. It's almost like she's descending the stairs for her lunch.
That's what I was going to say, it's around lunchtime. So maybe she's kind of used to that routine of being out of her room at that point.
And many describe the area around her as being filled with white mist while she's present. So white dress, white mist. The woman in white or lady in white is a common haunting trope, but that's typically associated with lost love or something like that. I don't think that she really fits necessarily that description, but here we go. I'm going to throw something at you. What if Sally/Susie/Sarah and the woman in white are the same person? Thoughts on that?
So going based on my theory, if her family left her there, she might not know who she is. If she was going through this like really bad period of mental health to the point where they left her at this asylum, then yeah, maybe she's also confused. And when you were talking about the white, I was thinking maybe it's just the asylum clothing.
That's something I didn't consider. Like maybe it's just the actual patient gown.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, what if Sally, Susie, Sarah was dropped off as a child and kind of grew up in the asylum? So what if we're capturing her at 2 periods of time?
That would be a really interesting haunting.
I know that it was common to just kind of drop people off at asylums.
Yeah.
So it could be the case that this is 2 separate hauntings, but I do think there's the possibility that it's the same spirit.
Yeah. And I do like talking about the constructs of time when we talk about the spirit realm, because I do think, obviously, well, not so obvious, we don't know, but I do personally believe that the constructs of time in the spirit realm don't actually follow what we know as time.
Right. I believe that too. So I think it's very possible that the presentation could be as an older Sally, Susie, Sarah, and a young child.
Yeah.
There's actually another trickster ghost here. And this one is more of actually a joker, less of a scary
Not a
joker. Ah. And this is also on the second floor, specifically in room 200. The current owner spent a night in the room and woke up to someone grabbing specifically his big toe.
Well, that's an interesting one.
Yes. But if you're like playing a joke or something, I guess.
Yeah.
When that happened, his dog allegedly started barking, and he later investigated the room doing an EVP session. He captured, "I grabbed you," during the session. I know.
That is so cool.
Right. That has to be a callback to that night.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what I love, again, when people spend time in these spaces and are really able to make connections like that. Because if he hadn't spent the night there, or someone else captured, "I grabbed you," they wouldn't be able to associate this with the same person.
Right.
But this feels definitely playful since they were able to associate it. Because it's like, gotcha.
Yeah.
There are some general hauntings along with these very distinct ghosts as well. Shadow figures are seen wandering from room to room, and not much is known about who the figures are, but in my opinion, it could also be some of the previously mentioned spirits.
Yeah.
I think there's sometimes a debate in the paranormal community of fixed presentation of a spirit. For example, are they always appearing as a shadow figure? Are they always appearing as a full body apparition? Are they never appearing at all and only communicating? I think if you think of it that way, as if you're once a shadow figure, you're always a shadow figure, then these spirits probably aren't the same. But if you do have a bit more flexibility, like we were talking about with Susie, Sally, Sarah, then it could be that these shadow figures are these other spirits.
Yeah, and in my head, I think of it as like, shadow figures might be unintelligent hauntings of shadow figures doing their routines, kind of going about their day. And then the more distinct figures are ones that might be intelligent. And again, that's not always true. That can flip-flop and that can reverse. It's just like, because it's not a distinct person or individual, it's almost to me like they're just going about their routine as if they were alive.
That's interesting. I wonder if building on that, part of it is these spirits that are presenting as apparitions want to be seen, and the shadow figures want to go about their routine without being as noticed.
Yeah.
I wonder if that could be an aspect of it. People also report hearing footsteps on the second floor. So again, that second floor with the trickster, with the woman in white, investigations have captured apparitions in photos and videos throughout the whole location.
Yeah.
They've actually captured children on the second floor. And that's interesting to me because I automatically assume that it's from the poorhouse era, but it doesn't have to be.
No, I mean, less likely to be part of the nursing home, although I do think there's something to be said about little children like visiting their grandparents that are there. So that's always possible, a possibility. If they formed memories there with their grandparents, they might return. And of course, with the asylum, that might absolutely have been a child.
Yes.
There.
That was my thought about the nursing home too, is they probably didn't live there.
Yeah.
They were just visiting. Visitors have also heard disembodied voices throughout the building, and some of them, as we know, might respond to questions or engage. Investigators have also reported issues with equipment, like batteries draining quickly, and like I said, abnormalities appearing on media.
The technology thing makes sense to me, because if we're talking about the time that it was an asylum, I'm sure that any unfamiliar thing, the spirits just don't want any part of, And maybe even the nursing home, if it's an older individual, they're like, what is this thing? You know what I mean?
Right. Or if they just want to be left alone, again, because this was some sort of care facility throughout its history. I think it's safe to say that you're always going to get people who are not wanting to be in the care facility and could think, you're a caretaker of any sort, a nurse, a doctor, someone running the poorhouse, and they just want to be left alone.
Right.
And it is their space.
Yes, absolutely.
Any final thoughts on Edinburgh Manor?
I really enjoyed learning about this place just because the history was so vast. I think it was a really interesting discussion to talk about where the spirits might be coming from. I think a lot of times if you have one continuous history, still super interesting, but even if you can identify the names of the spirits, still super interesting. But then you kind of know where they are. I think it's kind of cool to debate where each spirit might be from.
Yeah, I agree. It's like we have just enough information to guess about who they might be, but there's still so much to be discussed and investigated.
Yes.
If you're listening and you've been to Edinburgh Manor, we want to hear your stories. You can email us at theteam@hauntedus.com and include Haunted Atlas episode 11 in the subject, or find us on Instagram @hauntedus. Tune in to our next episode to see where we drop the pin on our adventure across the haunted US. This episode of Haunted Atlas was presented by Sarah Sweeney and Erica Barrett. It was researched by Sarah Sweeney, supported by research from Haunted US head writer Mitch Gott, with production assistance by David Sweeney, and music by Colleen Johnson. Our executive producer is Brandon Rugsey. Haunted Atlas is a production of Haunted US. Visit hauntedus.com for more information.